You might think the luxury market is safe because a blockchain says authentic. But imagine a counterfeit watch carrying a perfect digital certificate snapped to a tamper-proof ledger and a buyer paying 6 figures without a second thought. How does that happen? And why are investigators suddenly chasing ghosts made of pixels and forged paperwork? Stay with me. Over the next 12 minutes, I'll reveal how AI and blockchain are quietly becoming the new gatekeepers of luxury and how that gate can be opened from the outside. AI image forensics combined with blockchain certificates are reshaping the pre-owned luxury ecosystem. This isn't science fiction, it's the stack today's marketplaces. Insurers and brands are building to reduce fraud and boost buyer confidence. But layered tech creates new gaps and new types of fraud. I'm going to walk you through, step by step, how authentication actually works in real markets, where it succeeds, where it fails, and the practical red flags investigators, collectors, and regulators should watch. This is educational analysis only. For legal, tax, or compliance questions, consult a qualified professional. First, let's strip it down to basics. Modern pre-owned authentication is a hybrid system. On the image side, vendors use microscopic image forensics, AI that analyzes texture, stitching patterns, leather grain, serial number fonts, thread tension, even microscopic dye artifacts. Device-based material and texture analysis has been broadly deployed across platforms in recent years. On the ledger side, certificates of authenticity are digitally issued and often anchored to a tamper-evident ledger, sometimes a public blockchain, sometimes a centralized immutability service. But here's the crucial distinction. The ledger proves only that a certificate existed at time X and was attached to some item. It does not by itself verify the physical item's origin. So a correct blockchain entry can coexist with a counterfeit object if the onboarding checks were compromised. Consider a concrete seller to reseller flow. A private seller wants to liquidate a high-end handbag and lists it on a marketplace advertising AI verification and blockchain-backed certificates. The onboarding asks for photos, serial numbers, original receipts if available, and may require an in-person drop-off for microscopic scanning or a tamper-evident kit. 2 attack paths emerge. First, the casual fraudster. A high-quality counterfeit bag coupled with a fake paper invoice and photos that pass basic checks. Many platforms catch most of these with lab tests, but advanced fraud has moved on. Attackers now use synthetic provenance, AI-generated invoices, and ownership chains, or they re-anchor fake certificates onto legitimate ledger transactions to create plausible paper trails. Large operations can produce convincing fakes and paper trails. US. Customs and Border Protection has publicly reported major seizures of counterfeit luxury goods. That's where blockchain anchoring helps, provided the ledger was only ever bound to verified physical origin markers. But what if a ledger entry itself is created after multiple unauthorized transfers to mask origin? That's exactly the seam fraudsters exploit. Why do marketplaces push this technology? Because trust equals transactions. Platforms that reduce returns, claims, and insurance payouts increase gross merchandise value and buyer confidence. Some marketplaces monetize verified provenance with featured listings, higher commission tiers for authenticated items, and premium insurance partnerships. But automated systems have error rates. False positives can block legitimate consigners. False negatives can let polished fakes slip through. Vendors publish summaries celebrating wins while noting variation by category, yet independent audits and transparent performance data are still sparse. Most buyers assume zero risk, and that mismatch is the opening fraudster's exploit. Investigators don't rely on any single data point. They triangulate across multiple signals. The blockchain transaction history, marketplace logs like timestamps, IP addresses, and shipping records, AI forensic outputs, including microfeature hashes, lab reports, and human inspection. A typical investigation will pull the blockchain anchor to check the timestamp issuing authority and whether the anchor binds to a unique physical marker, such as an RFID tag, NFC chip, or micro engraving. Investigators will query platform logs to see who uploaded photos and from where, checking for uploads originating from unexpected geolocations, or anonymizing VPNs. They run image forensics to compare microscopic texture hashes against known authenticated samples for that model and year, watching for oddities like overly smooth patterns that can indicate AI smoothing. Paperwork is validated by checking serial numbers with the manufacturer and cross-verifying receipts against sales records. Interviewing provenance, speaking with previous owners, consignment shops, or private sellers often reveals inconsistencies AI misses. Blockchain analytics can show a certificate's chain, but if fake certificates are created and then anchored to legitimate wallets that have a mixed transaction history, investigators need pattern analysis to detect what I call certificate laundering. A ledger entry can look pristine while physical markers tell another story. Who do you trust then? This is an arms race. As AI forensics improve, attackers pivot. 3 high-risk tactics are emerging. First, synthetic provenance. Ownership chains and invoices entirely generated with AI and published to create social proof. Second, data poisoning. Attackers corrupt training sets or public registries so AI models learn the wrong features. For example, linking specific stitching flaws to authenticity. Third, re-anchoring counterfeit certificates, creating forged certificates and anchoring them against real low-value transactions or compromised wallets to manufacture legitimacy. Academic work on in-generation watermarking and perceptual hashing is trying to counter these tactics by embedding provenance signals in images or using homomorphic techniques, but these remain research tools with uneven deployment across global resale markets. If both sides keep upgrading, who wins the arms race? Sometimes neither, and sometimes both, which produces mixed mode frauds that are harder to detect. What can buyers, collectors, and regulators actually watch for today? There are concrete red flags. Certificates issued after multiple ownership transfers or dated suspiciously late are suspect. Gaps in the chain of sale where an item disappears for extended periods are a warning. Microfeature mismatches, microscopic stitching, or texture inconsistent with the claimed model and year are a strong indicator. Certificates that lack cryptographic binding to a unique physical marker, such as RFID, NFC, or micro-engraving, are weaker. Identical or unusually similar serial numbers across different listings suggest copying. Multiple cross-listings with slightly different photos or metadata, especially rapid relisting after delisting, are suspicious. Shipping anomalies like routing through high-risk jurisdictions or returns that vanish from tracking should raise alarms. Mitigations include demanding cryptographic binding, where certificates commit to a unique physical marker or image hash taken under controlled conditions, insisting on multimodal proofs that combine lab inspection, micro-hashes, paper trail, and seller KYC, and using trusted third-party custodial services for high-value transfers so chain of custody is verifiable. Regulators and insurers should require audit logs and vendor transparency about false positive and false negative rates. These defenses raise costs, which means smaller marketplaces might skip steps and create weak points for exploitation. Cross-border resale complicates enforcement. Counterfeits and provenance fraud don't stop at borders. Inconsistent customs procedures, varying privacy laws, and shell companies or privacy-preserving crypto services obscure transfers. Immutable ledger entries help trace movement, but attackers can mix transactions and use pseudo-anonymous identities to hide real actors. That's why physical enforcement and digital forensics must work together. Major seizures highlight how governments, insurers, and brands are starting to partner with authentication firms and discuss provenance standards and auditability, but legal frameworks still lag technological innovation. Even when a ledger entry is public, tracing can fail because off-chain agreements, mixed wallets, and privacy tools create opaque layers that investigators must peel away, often leaving human testimony or private accounting records as the only reliable trails. Defenders are layering countermeasures.